Hi, everybody. In today's episode, we're going to start a new trial. We're going up to Massachusetts, the same courtroom and the same judge that was trying the Karen Reed case. Now, I didn't cover the Karen Reed case, but she's getting a new trial, and I will cover the new trial, and I'll bring you up to speed before we get there. But today's trial is a woman by the name of Penelope McGee, and I'm going to tell you all about it today. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Helps the algorithm, helps YouTube know who I am. Subscribe. And if you are already subscribed, you can become a member of the channel. And the notification bell. You want to hit the notification bell. And more importantly, check your phone to make sure that you're allowing notifications from YouTube so you don't miss a single episode. So Penelope McGee, 58 years old, socialite. They're calling this the socialite murder case. It is not streaming on YouTube, so you're not going to find it. It is actually being, I think, televised on Court TV. But Court TV doesn't give you a trial from start to finish. They kind of give you clips of things, pieces and parts, and you have to kind of put it all together, which is what I'm trying to do for you today. I know this is going to happen. Penelope, I can't say it. Penelope McGee is on trial for manslaughter of her husband, Andrew Savitz. Now, they've been divorced. They were married for 15 years, divorced for 6 years, but they still had a relationship, not a romantic one, but a working relationship to raise their 3 children. Their oldest son was in college, and then there's another one, I think the one in college is named Noah, and then there's Harry and Zazie, not Zuzi. I thought they were saying Susie. It's Zuzi with a Z. Zuzi. And the youngest one is Harry, I believe. So this is a strange one, you guys. This is a really strange one because I know how they get to murder, but I don't know. So first of all, you need to know there's no jury. This is not a jury trial. She opted to have a bench trial. Now, Andrew Savitz at the time was 66 years old. Now, Andrew's infamously known to be he was one of the top advisors to Michael Dukakis in the 1988 presidential race. So they're very politically connected, this family. She at one point was vice president of JP Morgan. So they're pretty up and up, up there in Massachusetts. So on January 28th, now I'm going to kind of go through the opening statements. January 28th, she goes to the home of her ex-husband after getting an email from his brother evicting her. Now, there's way more to the story than that. There is. So she goes over to the home, an altercation ensues, and he collapses during the altercation onto the floor, cardiac arrest. They get him to a hospital, and he dies shortly after midnight. Now, there's a witness that saw this, their daughter, Zazie. So we're going to hear from the witness, Zazie, and we're going to hear from the brother. We're also going to hear from the medical examiner. What did they have to say about this man's cause of death? So there's a theory in the law that I learned in law school called I just bit my tongue. The eggshell theory. And the eggshell theory says, you have to take your victim the way you find it. It doesn't matter that they're severely ill. If they collapse and die during some tort that you're committing against them, then you're responsible for their death. So if she was pushing and shoving him, because this witness is going to say she was pushing and shoving him, And it's at that point he collapses and dies. Now, even though pushing and shoving, you wouldn't think, okay, this is not going to cause anybody's death, and there was no intent to murder him. Thus, we have the manslaughter charge. But if your victim has this horrendous cardiac disease and is in, really bad health, and he happens to die because you shoved and pushed him, hey, you're on the hook for his death. And that's what we have here. They're saying she's on the hook for his death. Now, I believe what the medical examiner is going to tell us is that one of those pushing and shoving sent him into a dysrhythmia. His heart just went into a probably VFib, I'm guessing, and he collapses. Anyway, so did she even know that he was as ill as he was? That's going to be a question for, because that makes a difference. It really does. So the prosecution's saying, yeah, she knew he was ill. She knew. And the defense is saying, no, he was the aggressor on this day. He's the one that was pushing and shoving her. I don't think so. Not from what I've heard so far. So the first person on, let me see, what else am I forgetting here? Okay. So just a little background. They get this divorce. She's living in a house that is owned by his two brothers. It's in some kind of trust that one of the brothers has. And the brother that has the trust, he wants to sell off all of his assets. He's very, very ill. He knows he's, let me hang on. So there's a brother. He's the one that's got this trust. He wants to sell off all of his assets. He's very, very ill. So part of the assets is that home. They wanted to put it up for sale. So she was on a 6-month lease. So at the end of the 6 months, or before the 6 months was over, they notify her that they're not going to renew her lease. So the lease ends. She doesn't get out. So they have to start an eviction. Oh my God, stop. So at the end of the 6-month lease, she doesn't get out. So they have to start an eviction proceeding. So they come to a settlement during the eviction proceeding. And the settlement is that she's going to pay them some money, and the estate or the trust is going to pay movers to get her out of the house. So meanwhile, her ex-husband, Andrew, he tells her, hey, come on over here and live. Now he's living in this house, and he's got the 3 kids with him. The oldest had already gone off to college, so there was a spare room there. And then the daughter has a room, and then the youngest has a room. He's like, but they had an arrangement. It wasn't written or anything, but the arrangement was she would come after the daughter had already gone to bed. Daughter's 17 years old, 12th grade. She's not talking to mom. Big surprise there. Mothers and daughters, teenage girls, man, they're rough. She's not talking to her mom. Don't want anything to do with mom, which is important thing to remember. So the arrangement was she would come over after she's already gone upstairs to bed, and then she would stay in the oldest one's room, who's off to college. So I don't know that she got along very well with these brothers of Andrew. So over the next few months, there was an auto accident. The brother's on the stand now. He's the first witness, and he was saying that there was an auto accident in August, and after that, there's a text from her. Well, a text from her brother too, saying they got into an accident. There was some kind of cognitive issue that caused him to get into this accident, and he totaled his vehicle. He goes to the emergency room, leaves without being seen. She goes over to see him, and she's like, no, pack your bag. We're going to the hospital. You need to go to the hospital. So she communicates with the brother saying, you didn't even call him. You don't come visit him. What's going on? I'm taking care of him. So she actually took care of him after he got out of the hospital. She told the brother in a communication, I saw the communication, that there were 3 issues with him. One of the issues is that he had had a stroke following this car accident. He had cognitive issues. It might even be what caused the accident. Cognitive issues, and that he had a clogged left artery. So she knew he had a cardiac problem. So she did know that. He also had a $2 million life insurance policy. But anyway, that's an aside. So that's the brother's testimony, Jonathan Savitz. So you can tell that there's some discord between them. Then 6 days before his collapse, he gets into another accident. Yeah, totals his son's car. And she texts the brother that he's been in another accident. Listen, I took off work to take care of him after the first accident. I can't do this anymore. You're going to have to figure out something for your brother, is basically what she's saying. This is 6 days before the event. So it wasn't like, oh, she got a text that night about an eviction and she runs over and gets into an argument with Andrew. That's not how it was. The eviction had occurred prior to that. Why was she there that night? Because that's where she was living. He said, you can come stay with me after you've been evicted. You can come stay with me until you find a place. Just don't have anything to do with your daughter. So that's what was happening there. So that night she gets there and she makes sure that the daughter is upstairs sleeping, and she comes into the house, and this is according to the defense. She was, they had a conversation. They were going to go over and watch some TV. And then he starts antagonizing her about the eviction, disparaging her. And they get into this tough tussle. And he's telling her to leave. He repeatedly tells her to leave. They're pushing and shoving each other. And he's saying, get out of the house. And he's pushing her towards the front door. He keeps pushing her. It starts in the living room, moves to the kitchen. And it ends up at the front door where he collapses. So then the daughter takes the stand. She was 17 years old at the time. She's 23 years old now. At the time, she was in the 12th grade. I don't think she realized mom was living there. She did know mom was there, but only when she wasn't there is what she thought the arrangement was, that mom wouldn't be around when she was there. So she's up in her room that night and she hears some yelling and screaming. And she's thinking, oh, it's dad and the brother that's still living at home. So she walks downstairs, and as she's coming downstairs, she sees Penelope and her dad. She's calling her mom Penelope. This is how pissed she is at her mom. Still, if my daughter called me Rebecca, I'd smack her. I'm mom. She calls Penelope. She sees Penelope and dad in the kitchen, and they're yelling and screaming at each other. And she's trying to intervene. She's trying to tell them to stop, and they're not stopping. She said that took like 5 minutes or so. She leaves. She goes back upstairs to her room to get her cell phone. But before she does, she goes to her brother's room, Harry, and tells him, don't leave your room. She gets her phone. She calls the other brother who's away at college, Noah. She gets on the phone with him, tells him what's going on. Then she calls 911 as she's walking back down the stairs, and she sees them now in the front entryway, in front of the door, front hallway. And she says her dad was backed up against the wall, and she sees mom slap him in the face, and she's shoving him several times in the chest. Then he collapses. Now she's on the phone with 911 when all of this is going on. I'm going to play the call for you. It is difficult to make out because this girl is hysterical. So take a listen.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I think it's in the system like that. Please tell us in the phone. Okay, hang on. What do you say more? Sarah, 40 minutes work for the message. I'm going to come right now. So they're on the way. I want you to say the phone. What's your name? Stop! Why are you losing it? Stop! Lizzie, stop! Lizzie. Do they not have weapons there? What? Do they not have weapons? No. What's going on? What's Karen? Stop! Let it stop! Okay. Okay, what just happened? I need to handle it. Okay, is he doing it? Can you bring your mom check for me, please? Okay. Izzy, I have help on the way, okay? I can tell you to be confident, okay? Can you check and see if he's breathing? He's breathing. Done. Okay? And this is paramedic 10, 40 medical record, and down. And this is paramedic 10, 50 medical record. And down. This is in the eye. Zero is anything at the time. Okay. What you done? Is he not somewhere, okay? How old are you? Okay. Just stay on purpose. I understand I'm away, I promise, okay? I'm just saying. Okay. Okay, stay on the way. He is breathing, right? Is he talking to you? Stop breathing. Okay. Izzy, help on the way, okay? I'm gonna help you, okay? Your mom knows how to CPR? There we go. Okay. They're on the way, they're on the way. Izzy? Okay. Izzy, is down the floor? Okay. Where's your mom right now? Izzy, are you just taking me back for me, okay? If your mom's taking your dad CPR right now, Izzy, there's a lot of park on the way, okay? If you have a park over there, okay, open the front door, turn on the lights for them so they know where they're going. Okay, and you're doing great. You're staying outside? Yeah. You're doing great. I know you do be correct for me, okay? Okay. You tell me when they're right there with you, okay? Take your deep breath for me. Feel great, okay? Just go in your ambulance. The ambulance is coming too. The police officers taking the virus is come with them, okay? They won't know how to do CPR, so they're gonna come and help, okay? Izzy, you're doing great.
Ms. Savitz, is that your voice on that recording that we just heard?
Yes,
And is that the call that you made on January 28th of 2020?
yes.
What you think of that? Like, I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Because at one point, this girl testifies that she was urging her mom to do CPR, and mama was saying he doesn't need it. And that's true. If he collapsed, the first thing you're going to do is assess a person that collapses to see if they're breathing. Do they have a heart rate? Maybe she could see that he was breathing and he didn't need CPR. Anyway, it's at her daughter's urging that she then does start CPR. But meanwhile, I don't hear any of this during that 911 call. I didn't make out any of that conversation because 911 is still on the phone. So, but it was very difficult to make out whatever she was saying. Or you hear someone going, stop, stop, stop. I don't know if that was the daughter. I don't know if that was the defendant. I have no idea. But I guess they do. They probably heard that phone call 100 times, and they probably know who's who. I couldn't tell who was who on that phone call. So I'm just trying to see if I missed anything here. She said that her father had his, because she was asked, what was your father doing? He had his hands up, like defensively, like stop, that's what her father was doing. So the defense was trying to, on cross-examination, was trying to get her to say that she had kind of changed her story, but I don't know that they made much headway with that, because she gave a statement to the police 3 hours after finding out her father had died, because he died shortly after midnight. And so she may have said some things during that statement that don't jive with what she's saying now, but she says she's never read that statement. After she gave it, she's never read it. She said that the prosecution never showed it to her. She says, no, they didn't want me to see it. I don't know. I'd be curious. I'd like to match them up to see if it's still what she's saying or not. Also, the defense got her to admit that there was a hammer right there. She could have used a hammer. There's a hammer right there in that hallway, and she didn't use a hammer. She didn't use any weapons. And they got her to admit that no, she was not on speaking terms with her mother, that she told the police she can't remember the last time she had a conversation with her mother. So that's where we are in the case. Now, they're on day 4, but some of those have been half days because the judge is still hearing motions in the Karen Reed case. So today on day 4 is the medical examiner testimony. I will bring that to you tomorrow because I'm very curious if I'm right that this dysarrhythmia might have been caused by her shoving. So she might be on the hook for the manslaughter. I mean, everybody's saying, and I'm sure you might be thinking it as well. Well, this happens between couples all the time. They get into arguments, they get into shoving matches. And are you going to get charged with manslaughter if your husband dies of a heart attack after you shoved him? Maybe if you knew he had a heart condition, and I don't know. Like I said, you wouldn't normally think that shoving and pushing a person is going to cause their death. But she knew he had had a stroke, he had cognitive issues, memory problems, and he had this blocked artery. So I'll tell you what the medical examiner says tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. Bye.